It is 6:30, so with that, I will call the meeting of Calumet City School District number 52 to order, and let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey. Approval of the agenda. Anybody have anything? Changes? Nothing?
No changes.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And moving on to delegations, Mr. Peterson, anything?
No delegations this evening.
No delegation this evening. That, moving on to the proposed consent agenda. Anything there? Any questions or comments?
Nothing from me.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right, public, so where we are, public comments, the in person, obviously, no. Any? Nope, nothing electronic. Righty. New business, WIAA updates. Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted the board to be aware because at some point soon, there's going to become a public knowledge of some changes that the WIAA made. And they did not, to put it bluntly, they did not consider the input or even have a discussion with either principals or superintendents before their executive board made some changes. And I will send you a couple of slides out of a PowerPoint. I apologize because I was going to do that. And to be honest, until I sent it to another superintendent this morning, I didn't even think about it. But the bottom line is that the WIAA, for some reason, has felt the need to impose financial penalties, i.e. fines, on individuals, meaning coaches, as well as teams and school districts for various violations. And they originally began talking about this in early 2024, which, again, shocking to me that the WIA is talking about something like this all the way back in 2024, and it's really never come up other than a couple of emails. Hey, we're talking about these types of things. But in the course of these discussions, and primarily it was amongst the athletic directors themselves, they went ahead and had a first reading of a new policy last July, a second reading in August, and adopted a series of fines that can be issued to schools. So the interesting part about this is the timing, because there was a vote that was not voted for during the last cycle at WIA about increasing the member charges. If you remember, one of the amendments was going to increase the cost to school districts to be covered by the WIAA. And that was resoundingly voted down. And this is being seen as a roundabout way to get some more income for the WIA. Yes, sir.
Maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, but what we have basically, and no offense to any of this teachers or staff covered.
Hmm?
But are we having the employees then find the business that they work for?
No. What an example would be is, for instance, if we have coaches, coaches have to be cleared by the school district, which then implies that they have been cleared by the WIA to be a coach. They have done all of the necessary continuing education. They have filled out the proper paperwork. They have read the concussion protocol and signed off on all of these things. This is notoriously something that's hard to get coaches to do because it's, like so many other things, repetitive. It's the same thing every year. They have to do it, though. They have to click off that they did it to be covered. Well, one of the things that the WIAA can fine a district for is not having their coaches cleared. They can fine us or any school district up to $500 per coach. So with a school district of our size, you think about, okay, we've got, I think the last count, we had like 27 individuals who were coaching. So let's say you got 10 of them. If you get 10 of them who aren't cleared by a certain date, it could conceivably result in a $5,000 fine to the school district. That's a good chunk of change for us. But if you put that in the perspective of a larger district where there could literally be hundreds of individuals coaching, you can see that all of a sudden those fines could add up really quick. And the impetus seems to be, from the standpoint of the superintendents that met about this last week when we all found out about it, is that the WIAA is trying to create financial incentives to do their job for them. Meaning, we're the ones, the school administrators should be doing all the policing of all of these various things that have typically fallen on the WIAA to do. They also have decided to pick on specific sports, meaning that for whatever reason, you can be ejected as a player from a football game, and there's no financial ramifications for that. But if you're a boys soccer player and you get ejected, that's a $100 fine to the district for that. Now, I'm not sure. I have no factual information about why there would be this difference between sports. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to state those publicly until we get some real answers. And I am actually in a meeting with a group of small school superintendents tomorrow, and Mick Hoffman, who is the executive director of the WIA. And he's going to come before our group, which is the Rural Ed Center, and try and explain how these things get passed without any input, including, for instance, missing a deadline for the membership renewal. That is a board-led issue. It's my job to get that on an agenda, and every year we take a vote on, are we going to continue with the WIA? Well, if we miss that vote for whatever reason, that could throw a $500 fine to the district. Missing a deadline to submit a roster or a photo of your team can result in a $100 fine. Go ahead, Dan.
I guess you got a question for a couple of reasons. First off, I guess does this seeing a picture or something, is there some way that they test compliance or safety?
With the picture,
Yeah.
no, that's for like the state program.
No, that's kind of what it looked like. I was
Yeah.
just wondering, but what do we gain if we take taxpayer time? Go ahead and get all of these sign offs and that type of thing. Is it going to be safer for the athletes?
Yep.
What does it add to? Well, we're burning up taxpayer time.
What, and I was actually going through some of these different fines. What that does, that $100 fine for not submitting a photo, makes it so that the WIAA can get their rosters and their submissions for state playoffs to the printer faster and get copies made for them and get them back on time. Now, the other thing that, quite frankly, it's 2025, for goodness sakes, I go on any school website and find a picture of a team without having to find anybody. And if you think this discussion is taking a turn towards the absurd, it went well past absurd because, as I said, I'm talking with people, with other superintendents who have good relationships with the WIA that were caught off guard. I have yet to hear from anybody who, like Teddy, is a WIAA rep from a school board, which we all have a rep on. No one knows anything about their board reps ever being contacted. It's bordering on ludicrous that we're even having to spend this time with this discussion. But tomorrow is going to be a very interesting meeting because there are 295 school districts in the state, and I'd say there are about 250 really ticked off superintendents because their principals are all talking about this at principals meetings that they didn't know about any of this stuff.
So are I'm looking at their handbook currently, are these fees all new? Or have there been some fees in place in the past?
No, there have not been any fines in the past, but it has always been a bylaw since the inception of the WIAA that they could impose fees.
Oh. Well, they ran with that. didn't they?
Yes, they did. So the bottom line with this, and again, why are we talking about this at a school board meeting? Well, the reason is because it's going to no doubt hit media soon. And there are already attorneys getting involved because and our attorney, Stevens Clay out of Spokane, who represent at least 150 school districts in the state, are really taking the stance of they have no authority besides their own bylaw to do that. But as a governing body, they don't have any fiduciary responsibilities other than to make themselves enough money so they can do what the WIA does. I just wanted the board to be aware that this is the level of conversation that we're at. It's impacting anybody with a high school in the state, and it's probably going to get a little ugly, as things have been known to get with the WIA when you tell them to mind their own business.
So does the meeting in Spokane, is that the fait accompli of it, or is that just the start of it?
No, this really hit the fan last week when the principals meeting occurred, the superintendent's meeting, the regional superintendent's meeting. We were brought up to speed on this. But like I said, people are already calling attorneys, asking what is going to be the common response, because I have a feeling that WIA is looking at this as, well, there's going to be a school or two or maybe 100 that they'll all kind of send some nasty emails and we'll go about our business. I have rarely seen 23 superintendents in a room be as cohesive in message as I did last Thursday. And they're all pretty torqued. And so I have a feeling that the schools that are represented by Stevens Clay are probably going to sign off on a common letter drafted by our attorneys and say, yeah, we need to have you revisit this. soon. Because while there are even, there's misinformation about whether this is currently in practice for this school year, whether it starts in the 26-27. There's lots of stuff out there, and basically we need the WIA to step back from this and rethink how they went about this. So, Betty?
Did you read the article about Roosevelt High School? In June, that they filed?
Yep. So that's coming, and I just wanted the board to be aware that these are the types of discussions that we're having. And of course, at any time, before any action is taken, before we sign off on anything, I'll bring it back to the board. I just didn't want you to see something out there in the paper before I got a chance to explain what exactly is going on. That's one word for it. So I'll keep you updated.
Moving on to new business D, 2409 credit for competency proficiency.
All right, thank you, Teddy. Policy 2409, and please understand, neither of the two policies that we're discussing tonight, I'm not asking for any revisions because both of them are a little complicated in that I don't want to bring you even a draft before we have the discussion. Because 2409 is credit for competency or proficiency. And what that means is the school board allows our high school students in certain subject areas to gain high school credit for being proficient or competent in certain areas. If you look at our current policy, which was adopted in 2018, in 2018, there was one policy, and in it, we mentioned our world languages, meaning if you speak a foreign language and you take a test, you can achieve up to 4 credits based on your level of proficiency. A great example of that, and the one that's most common in this area, is if you are a native Spanish speaker, why the heck would you have to go take 2 years of Spanish in order to get into college? You can test out, show your proficiency, and go on to a 4-year school. Also at the same time, the board, as many school districts did in an effort to incentivize students taking the high school proficiency exam seriously, that's the state mandated exam, allow for credit to be given and earned by kids for getting certain proficiency scores on the high school tests. So in that case, you're talking English language arts, math, and biology. So in theory, a student could earn, based on our current policy, a credit for state assessment, the 4 credits for Spanish or another native language. You can earn almost a year's credit simply by showing that you know your stuff. The reason I'm asking the board about this now is simply because WASDA has separated this policy, which is 2409, into a separate specific policy for each subject area. Therefore, 2409 is in the new WASDA policy manual, a credit for competency in world language, whereas 2402 is English language arts, 2403 is math, 2404 is history, and one for every subject area. That does not mean we have to adopt it. However, This one is limiting in the fact that we only have 4 subject areas covered. Is it conceivable that there would be, through whether a CTE program or other programs, opportunities for us to develop assessments, even local assessments in these other subject areas? So the main purpose behind this is to say, we really do need, in my opinion, to change at least 2409 to world language as the current policy manual states. And then to give you folks a couple of weeks before our next meeting to think about, okay, what are the other areas? We already have board policy in 3 of them. But realistically, what this is, would the board like me to bring the full slate of subject area proficiency testing options before the board? We adopt them even though it'll be a separate vote for each one, but we would essentially be adopting 9 or 10 policies, 1 for each subject area. Yes, sir.
If I understand this correctly, I've heard some of this before, not here, but this would allow me to, if I was a young student, had a proficiency in whatever areas were covered, foreign language or something, I can then challenge the class. And if I pass the challenge, then I get credit for passing that. I get credit for fulfilling the requirements of that.
Correct. The only difference being that at this point and in these particular 4 areas, the assessment is not something that we just give to a freshman coming in or a junior. It's, okay, you take the English, math, and biology state assessment at the end of your sophomore year. The credit for world competency typically is taken at the end of their junior or senior year. And the reason for that is, and this is something I've had experience with, when you have a dual language school system, which we are implementing in kindergarten this year, eventually we will have kids showing up at the high school who theoretically should be completely fluent in a second language. As a result of our educational system, well, those kids in 8th grade haven't earned any credit. They haven't been in high school. In other school districts that I've been in, as well as the current practice in the Tri-City area and the region really as a whole, the practice is you give those kids that test at the end of the 8th grade year because they're functionally fluent. You can award them the credit right then. And then if they choose to, they could take another language in high school if there was an option for that. Or in the case of Benton City, where we don't have multiple languages, they can take other electives instead of those Spanish classes. So it's a win-win from the standpoint of it's a good thing to be multilingual, but that's something for our non-native speakers that isn't going to be impacting us for another, see, those kindergarten kids are 5, so probably another 7 or 8 years. So mainly, again, this is one of those, I want the board to be aware of potential changes to the policy. It is not a right now thing, but because it came to my attention as a result of looking at dual language and looking at some potential state changes in the assessments and standards and such, I thought it'd just be a good time to make you aware of it. And then we can go ahead and do whatever we wish. If I had to make a recommendation to you, I would say we just adopt a full slate of them across the subject areas so we don't have to revisit it again until another 8 years when the state changes their standards again.
Just out of curiosity, why can they not all be lumped into one policy?
I think that the way this policy was written back in 2018 when it was adopted was an attempt to do that. And I think the sheer number of different subject areas that started to pop up, I think they felt like, okay, maybe we've got just a few too many subjects to put into one. So this is something, again, we can have on future agendas, just as discussion item until we come to a good consensus on which way we want to go.
Good. Very good there.
Yep.
All right, now move on to 7C, 2331, controversial issues and guest speakers. Discussion, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you one more time. Policy 2331 is one we currently do not have on the books. And after looking at a couple options, I spent some time over the weekend looking at other school districts. And this policy is actually one that is widely interpreted, which was a little bit surprising because usually you don't have that in board policy. But one of the reasons I think that it's that way is the original WASDA policy that is titled Controversial Issues and Guest Speakers was adopted in 2011 and has not been changed since. But as I started looking at other school districts who have the policy in place or have a policy in place, many of them don't match the WASDA policy. Many of them are quite different. In fact, some go as far as to eliminate the guest speaker and just say teaching of controversial issues. And I must say at that point, I got a little nervous because that really opens things up. And so I guess really what I'm looking for from the board, I think it is always wise to have a board policy before we have a potential issue. And I know that there have been times when we have had in this district to react to things happening, and then adopt a policy to kind of hopefully match up with what we did. So given the current state of society right now, controversy seems to be popping up at a higher rate than ever before. I do not think that this is as simple as a guest speaker, because quite frankly, guest speakers are almost a dying breed from the standpoint schools don't have to have guest speakers anymore with the internet and I hate to even say the word, but TikTok or various things like that. You can have a online guest speaker at as quick as a Google search. And what we would simply be doing is not dictating anything other than saying, if you are going to be discussing controversial issues or issues that could be controversial, a set of guidelines around how to present things like that in a manner which does not put the district behind a certain view or another, which is all I'm trying to avoid. The last thing we need is for any type of, and it's very difficult in a class like Current World Problems, where obviously in our current world, there are some problems that need to get put out there for discussion, and I'm all in favor of that. However, we cannot be seen as a school district of taking sides. And so that's the route I'm hoping that the board will allow me to take. And that's the impetus behind what I'm going to be trying to do when I eventually bring you a draft of 2331. Again, this is something I would appreciate any input on. If you say, hey, Pete, this is just not something we even want to cross yet, I get it. Unfortunately, I think it'll happen to us before it happens by us. So that's where I kind of feel like it's my responsibility to the board to get at least the option out there to explore some of these things. That's the impetus behind my looking at it, and I welcome any feedback you have.
I was reading it, I was like, well, this can go a lot of different ways.
Yes.
When you're reading it, so. Yeah.
The one I came across that actually, if I had to choose, it would be preferable, and I will get the board copies of it, but if you want to see it before I send it to you, Kennewick School District adopted one in 2023 that was vetted by their district council. It's actually quite good. I think it's a little lengthy, but Kennewick likes to do that. But it gets more at what I was aiming at, which was, hey, if you're gonna talk about some of this stuff, make sure equal time to the equal players.
Right.
So,
And not leave it open to interpret.
exactly. Which is really what I'm afraid of, so. But I will get several examples from different school districts, so you can kind of see what their mindset was when they adopted. And then we can have another discussion only and see if this is someplace we want to continue going there.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to the blue board comments. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I would like to share that I don't know if he was the first, but my son, who took the pilot CDL class at Kybe, got his CDL
Yay.
license on August 27th.
Yay.
After going to Walla Walla, which was coordinated effort with the Walla Walla Community College and IB being the second school in the state to implement the pilot program for kids to get their CDLs. I know some other kids have finished their testing over at the college and still had to go get theirs, but I know he was at least possibly the first kid or one of a handful of them that successfully got his license.
That's awesome.
That's phenomenal.
So I just think that is a really cool program that the school that
Yep.
giving kids an option to do. Now he has a tool in his tool bag for working.
Absolutely.
So
That's really good to hear.
Yeah, that's great.
so that's all.
Gainful employment is around the bend.
Oh,
So yeah, I thought that was worthy of sharing with everybody.
Absolutely.
great. Dan, do you have anything?
No.
Perfect. I am good. So with that, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And I've shared quite a bit already. So so this is going to be fairly quick. First off, the board is aware we had an incident with our big lawnmower burning up last spring. And while we were able to gain a little bit of insurance dollars from that, obviously wasn't enough to go out and replace a $45,000 mower. However, Richland School District was kind enough to let us borrow a backup large area mower that they have. They had not had the time to do some repair work. And so Mr. Crago agreed that we would perform some maintenance on it. He and Troy worked on it to get it going. And as you can see outside, when you walked in, baseball field was mowed for the first time in a long time. And they've been making good progress with that. So I want to acknowledge Richland School District. I'm going to send them a letter or make a public comment at one of their board meetings just to thank them, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Great.
And I hope in the future that more school districts get in the habit of taking care of each other a little bit when they're able to. So really appreciate that. Next item, our athletics programs, football up and going. And I can't thank our community, our parents enough for the job that they're doing with transporting kids to games. We've had no issues that I have become aware of or that the principals are aware of. I've been traveling to our away football games. Our kids are showing up and competing. So it's good stuff. So I can't thank them enough. Appreciate that support. And then finally, we're going to be applying for a series of grants over the next month or two. The first one being an emergency grant with OSPI for replacement of an HVAC in the weight room. Then we're going to be applying for a grant for Healthy Kids, Healthy Schools is the name of it. When that becomes available, we're going to be applying for some new elementary playground equipment. And then we haven't decided yet, and this is simply because of the cost, but we need to do some repair work at minimum. Replacement of a section or two maximum of the roof at the high school here. The roof above the library and then going out the math science wing needs some help. And of course, we are 2 years out of warranty. So we've got some quotes. The first two, I think we should get a good look at. The one for the roof is significant, but I'm hoping that if we can get in early enough before some other districts, we might still have a chance of getting part of it taken care of. I don't think anything, I do not see us getting a grant to replace the roof, but I do see that we could possibly get some money for repair work. Band-Aid that would get us another 5 to 7 years, and then we'd be looking at a full replacement. So I will keep the board informed on those grants though, and it may very well be that we need something in the way of letters of support from the school board, but I'll let you know if that comes up.
Good, done?
That's it.
Okay. All right, well, we will move into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, section 1, of a public employee, no business to follow, 30 minutes, and then we'll adjourn. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna-